If he could manage to gather this boy, bring him together, and if his vision of the future was indeed true and he was able to find the last son of Belmont again, a person that he hadn't seen in over a decade, they might just stand a chance. Might.
I'll tell you what you're going to do, Jonathan Joestar. You're going to come with me. You already prevailed against a vampire once, even if he wasn't an experienced one. Imagine what you could do if you go even further.
He pointed at Jonathan, arching his back as he did.
Jonathan Joestar, you have an appointment with fate, and I'm here to help you keep it.
Dio Brando scoffed under the cover of night. His body was covered in scars from the burn wounds he had received from Jonathan. He still hadn't managed to fully recover, but he was well on his way, especially with the aid of his new minions. He would have to hurry and leave the city, at least that was the initial plan. To even find a location that he could call his own, conquer, and inevitably, wait for Jojo to show up. Then, he would have his vengeance. But plans always had a funny way of changing on him, especially when other vampires got involved. He didn't even know there were any other active vampires outside of himself. He was mostly sure the Belmonts got them all, but there was living proof to the contrary right in front of him, and he was very sure of himself. He walked up to Dio with no hesitation, like a thing like him had any right being in Dio's presence. And what was worse, he had the audacity to talk to Dio like he was his underling. This was despite the fact that Dio was nice enough to go out of the way to show people his status. He was being carried around in a throne, for goodness sake. He couldn't get much more obvious than that.
Oh, a new blood.
The creature before him snarled. He had a crew with him too, easily a dozen or so vampires, and he seemed very proud of that fact. But if Dio had to guess, that was all he had.
Come to pay your respects to the new King of London.
Almost immediately, Dio suppressed a laugh.
The king, you say? Well, I already had to make my way through the shithole,
the other vampire countered.
I figured I might as well claim it as my own, unless you have objections.
Dio smiled as he shook his head. It's going to be an interesting conversation. You might as well let it play out a little longer.
Very well then, I'll take these men as your offerings,
he said, more as a statement than anything else, waving to the underlings carrying Dio's throne. Dio smiled and didn't say anything else, as he put his head in his palm, and patiently waited for the man to continue.
I'll take your silence as recognition of your place in the grand scheme of things, in which case it's a pleasure to have you on board, but I'll have to be going soon. If you want, you're welcome to stay in the city. I'll have somebody look after you, back to welcome you properly.
He sneered, the slight bit of his fang now shining under the moonlight.
Well, my, that is a generous offer,
Dio said, directly addressing the man. Not because the man had done anything to impress him, but rather because he had actually, inadvertently, said something interesting.